So as we know, the ACCA Computer Based Exams have written sections where you will either be given a word processing software or a spreadsheet like the one on screen where you need to write down your answer. And oftentimes students will practice for the word processing software using Microsoft Word and for the spreadsheet software using Microsoft Excel, which is fine because that's the purpose. The reason ACCA has put these softwares in the exam is so that students become well equipped and well learned with regards to Microsoft Word and Excel, because these are very practical softwares which students need to be able to use when they start working in their professional lives. That being said, the spreadsheet software that ACCA provides in their platform is slightly different from Excel. So we need to be familiar with it as well. So that's why I just wanted to highlight its key features to help students better understand how it works. Now please keep in mind that this video was filmed in June 2021 and the features of the software have been changing over time. So it is possible, if you're watching this at a much future date, that the features might have become outdated by this point and some new features might have been added. So please keep that in mind. So when you have a spreadsheet in the exam, you'll be given a dashboard like this with some of the key buttons which you'll commonly find in Excel. Let's just quickly go through them and I'll explain their functions. So first you have the reset button, which is simply that if you want to reset your entire spreadsheet. So you've done all your working in the spreadsheet, but you find out that everything's wrong, you press the reset button and the spreadsheet will become blank once more. Usually I would not recommend using this because it's very unlikely that you've done everything wrong and you actually do need to reset it. But the key point is be careful, don't accidentally click on it because you might lose all your work. Then we have obviously the cut, copy and paste buttons, right? And you're probably familiar with these in Excel as well. So cut is you'll see that they've also given you shortcuts for these. So if you click on the edit menu tab, you can see you have cut, copy and paste, and they've given you the shortcuts Control X, Control C and Control V, just like in regular Excel, Word, anything, right? So you can use those shortcuts instead of these keys. So cut, if you want to remove something from one cell and place it into another cell. And copy, if you want to keep something in one cell but also move it to another cell, right? And paste is obviously when you move it. So Control X and Control V would be cut and paste, and Control C and Control V would be copy and paste. After that we have this button, paint format. We'll come back to this later, but this is a very important and crucial button that you need to know. So after that we have undo and redo. Undo and redo are basically when you make a mistake. So let's say I make a typo over here and I want to quickly finish that typo. I'll press Control Z and it will remove the typo. But sometimes I might press Control Z accidentally and I want to redo what I've done previously. I'll press Control Y and then I'll undo the undoing basically, right? I'll redo what I did previously. So that's what these two buttons are for, but as you can see in the edit menu, they're mentioned here as well. Undo, Control Z, and redo, Control Y. I would strongly recommend just know the shortcuts for these so that you can quickly do it without having to go up to the menu, select a button, and so on, okay? This here is just the zoom percentage on how big you want the view to be. So for example, if I want to zoom in further, I can pick 200%. And if I want to zoom in further away, 75%. In case all of your answer isn't being shown on screen and you don't want to scroll, you can use the zoom function to help yourself. Okay. Font size, just to increase or decrease the size of the letters and numbers in your cells. For example, if I increase it to 22, the size becomes larger. This is all something you'll know from Excel or Word already. This would be useful if you want to make something seem more prominent in your answer. Then we have these three buttons, bold, italic, underline. These are important for your presentation. You want to make sure your presentation is distinct. For example, if you have an income statement, let's say revenue, cost, and profit, right? And the question requires you to calculate the profit. Let's say revenue was 100, cost was 60, so your profit was 40. but you want to make sure that the examiner can easily see the profit. You can select it and you can make it bold, right? So that it stands out compared to the rest of the text. Or you can make it italic or underline, whatever the case you want it to be, right? These are useful for making certain parts of your answer transcript seem more prominent. And as with the other buttons, you can see that they've mentioned them here: bold, italic, underline. They've given the shortcuts Control B, Control I, and Control U, which are the same shortcuts as in Word and Excel. They don't seem to work on my computer, though it might be an issue with my computer. Just check on your end if these shortcuts work, because once again, using shortcuts is much quicker for you when it comes to making your actual answer. After that, we have these two buttons: text color and fill color. Fill color is to fill the background of the cell, right, to make it yellow. It won't affect the writing in the cell, whereas text color will change the color of the writing in the cell itself, right? Blue doesn't seem easy to read. Let's make it dark red. Okay. Once again, it could be useful for presentation purposes, though I wouldn't recommend focusing too much on making things too fancy with different colors. Just stick to bold, italic, underline whenever you need to make something distinct. After that, we have these three buttons, which are the alignment buttons. Very simple. As you can see over here in our text, Excel or the spreadsheet software automatically aligns numbers to the right and text to the left, but sometimes you don't want that, right? So if I'm putting a heading here that this is the income statement, let's say IS, I do not want this heading to be aligned to the left because it looks weird. So instead I could align it to the center so that it looks like a heading for the income statement, right? And I can make it use underline, bold, etc. to make it seem like a heading. So headings usually you would want to center, numbers you would want to align to the right, and text you would want to align to the left usually, but it's up to you generally. After that, we have these formatting buttons where you need, if you want to change the format of any particular value that you've added in the cell, right? So you have your number format, your currency format, your percentage format, your fraction format, which is useful, and your datetime format. So for example, if the income statement, we can format it in terms of currency. They've given you a lot of different options here, right? You can explore which options you want to keep, but generally any of them would work, right? So this one, as it says, is that you use dollars before numbers. You have a 0 at the end of the numbers, and red is for negative numbers, right? So for example, cost is a negative number, it's being shown as red. But it's up to you which format you use. No need to get too into it. Just know that these options are there. Same for percentage. Like you have rounded to 2 decimal places, rounded to 1 decimal places, rounded to the nearest whole number. So it's a quick use for formatting. And you have the fraction number, which is useful as well, because if I were to enter a fraction, let's say 3 by 7, I end up with this long decimal number. Now I don't want to round it exactly, because then if I'm using it in subsequent calculations, those might go off a bit. So I can instead use a fraction number as a fraction format and keep it as a fraction, right, for my own reference purposes. But that being said, these format buttons, I would recommend that you also look at this part of the menu when it comes to formatting, okay? So in this part of the menu, you have something called cells. When you click on this button, you can see that it gives you a lot of different variety of the types of format that you want. You have numbers, and it tells you all the different styles that you can use if you want to use a separator and so on. Currency, date, time, percentage, fraction, scientific. So there's a lot of formats on offer beyond the regular menu. So just to repeat, rather than using these buttons, so to be honest, you'll be able to get a good answer just based on these buttons. You won't have to go into cells, but if you do, there's a lot more options over here. Now, that leads us to the last part, which is a bit to do with formatting. This button, Format Paint Format, or Format Painter as it's known in Excel. What does this button do? Well, for example, let's say I'm making the income statement for 2 years. So this is for the current year, and now I'm making one for the previous year, right? So previous year income statement. And I have my my revenue, and I have my cost, and I have my profit, and let's say revenue was 80, cost was 50, and profit was 30. Now I want to have the same format for this income statement that I did for this income statement. But obviously I don't want to do all the work all over again. So what I can do is I can select this income statement as is and click on paint format. Now when I make the same selection of this other income statement, it will copy all the features or all the formatting features of that income statement. So the heading over here will become bold and underline. The numbers will become in terms of currency with negative numbers showing as red, and the profit and its number will become bold, just like we did for the original income statement. And the format painter button can be applied to a group of cells like we did here. Just make sure that when you select a group of cells that you make the same selection elsewhere to the cells you want to apply it. Or it could even be applied to a single cell. So if I want to take the format of this cell and place it, let's say, for this cell, right? So simple. Once again, click on the cell which format you want to use, click on format painter, and then click on the cell which you want to convert to that particular format. Now there's still some more things left in the cells button, which is again a critical button that you need to know about, and that's these two tabs, the alignment and border buttons, right? So alignment, as you can see, have options. You have the horizontal alignment, which were the same buttons that we had over here, right? So left, right, center over here, right? And you have vertical alignment, top, center, and bottom. Now, why would we need vertical alignment in some cases? Well, that also has to do with this button here, wrap text. So let's say when you have a question, sometimes you need to write analysis. So you're writing a lot of text for your analysis down below, and it relates to the income statement above, but it's not coming in one cell. Now one option is you can stretch that cell like this, but it makes the income statement look weird because revenue, cost, and profit move far away from your numbers. What other options do you have to keep the analysis of this income statement underneath it while keep making your formatting look good? Well, there's multiple options. One option is a simple one where you don't need to format much, which is that when you're writing your analysis, you just press enter in between the sentences and move down as you go along, right? That's one option. Another option though is you change the height or width of the cell. So I just showed you how to change the width, where you simply go up to the column, the edge of the column. You see these lines until you get this particular symbol, two double lines with two arrows going in both directions. And then you click on the edge of the column and you can stretch it out as much as you want or stretch it in as much as you want. And the same applies to rows. If you go to the edge of a row, you can stretch it down as much as you want or stretch it up as much as you want. So if you stretch it down, for example, you can see the row stretches like this. Now, let's say we have a lot of analysis written down, but we want to get it all in this one cell and make it look presentable. What can we do? So we go to our format button, cells. Now let me show you what will happen with the alignment. So right now our alignment is, let's make it left, apply, okay. And let us change our alignment for our vertical height. So it looks very weird at the bottom of the cell. Let's instead make the alignment top of the cell. So you click on apply and you can see that now the text is at the top of the cell, but it still looks weird because it's going outside the box of the cell and so on, right? So for that we have the wrap text button. So when I click on wrap text and apply it, all of the text moves in a more coordinated manner in the cell, right? Depending on how wide the cell is. So if I make the cell even wider, you can see some of the text starts going up and down and so on. And if I make it narrower, then it changes slightly, but it all keeps it in the basis of the cell. And based on how wide your cell is, you can rearrange the format. So Maybe you stretch it out a bit and you don't like the way it's looking. You go select cells, alignment, and whichever alignment you want. Let's say center alignment. Apply, and now it's in the center. Or top alignment. Top, apply, and now it's on top. Okay? So these are a few tricks you can use for formatting your answer, depending on what you want to use. Usually I prefer, when you're writing analysis, rather than bothering with wrap text and all of this, don't write too long a line initially. Just move on to the next line. Press enter and move on to the next line. The examiner can still make sense of it, right? So that's what I would recommend. Okay. Now, that leads us to the last part of this video, which I wanted to cover, the borders. So, for example, you have your income statement, and you want to make the format such that beneath the cost cell there's a line, and beneath the profit cell there's a line, to make the format more presentable. So what can you do? Well, you have different options. In border, you can choose the color, and you can choose the style, as well as the border itself. So let's say right now I'm at the cost cell. I want a line beneath the cost cell. So I'll say bottom line. Okay, I'll choose the type of border, how wide it needs to be, and so on. Let's pick this one. Apply. Okay, and now I have a line beneath this, right? And if I want to, let's say in this case I'm in the profit cell and I want to apply a line above, a border line above, I'll simply pick top, once again whichever border I want to apply. Let's pick this one in this case. Apply, and okay, right? So this can help in your formatting of your income statement. But maybe I want both lines, right? So revenue, cost, profit. Let's keep this up above. So Control X just to cut, paste. Let's put some random numbers there. Okay, this time I want a line above the profit cell and below the profit cell. Simple. Go to cells, border, and I can pick multiple. So top and bottom, right? And apply. Okay. And now I have a line above and below it. And I can change the thickness of the line depending on which type of border I pick. So the point is, there's lots of different options. So in the border area, you can pick the color of the border. Should it be an outline, top, left, bottom, right, etc. Usually for most of the part, you'll just need top and bottom borders. Possibly if you want to make a table, you might use the other ones like outline, left, right, etc. So for example, you might need a table. Let's say you're making a table for profit margin. So this will be the last example, just showing multiple features. So you're making a table for profit margin, and you want to make it presentable. So you have a row for profit, you have one for revenue, and you have your profit margin, which is profit over revenue, right? So first we'll stretch this column out because profit margin isn't fitting in. So we'll drag this column out. Then let's say there's two companies, A and B. Now we want to make the table headings look more prominent. So we'll make these bold, underline, and centered, right? And we'll make these bold as well. Okay, so profit margin, let's say we have the numbers here, 100 and 500 and 200 and 700. Okay, now you can apply many formulas just like you would in your regular Excel sheet, but keep in mind that shortcuts don't work. For example, if you want to add some numbers, you can use Alt plus in Excel. Over here you can't use that. Instead you will need to use the sum function or manually add the numbers together like so, right? But so keep in mind the formula shortcuts don't generally work here. So profit margin is profit over revenue, which we've shown in here. Profit margin is in terms of percentage, so we can pick the percentage format. Let's keep it to 2 decimal places. Okay, let's make this bold as well. Now let's say we want to make this table seem prominent, so we'll select the area which we need to make a table, cells, border, outline, and we want a thick outline, so we'll pick this, apply, okay, right? So now the calculation is showing separately, but let's make it a bit more format friendly. Let's give this a background color, so let's make this yellow, so that these are our headings which are separate from our calculation. But they still don't look good, so let's apply some grid lines in between to make the lines look more prominent within the table as well. So if we go to borders, let's select horizontal, vertical, apply, okay. So now the table, it's removed the outline, let's just apply the outline as well. So the feature here is horizontal, vertical, and outline. We'll have to select all of them. Okay, apply, okay. So now our table, the lines look more prominent as well, and it looks like distinct from the rest of our answer. Okay. Lastly, just a few formulas that are covered in this spreadsheet software. Pretty much all of the Excel ones, right? So you have your sum function is equal to sum if you want to add up some numbers. You have your, for example, product function in case you want to multiply the numbers, right? You have your average function in case you want to find the average of the numbers. You have some more advanced formulas as well, such as NPV and IRR and so on, right? So these ones depend on which exam you're doing. So NPV IRR would be more applicable when you're doing the F9 exam. But the point I wanted to make is that most of the features that you're familiar with in Excel are present in the spreadsheet software. But you still need to be familiar with the format of this software itself so that you're not uncomfortable with it during the exam. So when you're practicing, I would recommend using this spreadsheet more often than using an Excel file for your exam question practice. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and now you understand some of the key features of ACCA's spreadsheet software and will be able to use them to improve your exam practice and exam answers.